Hi guys, today we are going to talk about the development phase of SDLC. This is where we actually build our product. This is where we have the development team deliver a software for us. So let's see where it fits in. So if you remember our SDLC, we started with the planning phase, we got the requirements settled, then we created a design, and now we are doing the development of that product. The development phase is the phase where your actual coding happens. So this is where, as we say, right, the road meets the rubber. And this is the phase where you convert your design document. So whatever was the output from your design phase gets converted into a working software. This is also the place where you conduct activities like development, unit testing, integration, and so on and so forth. What are the key activities that we do in the development phase? Well, the most important is coding. You actually have the development team write the code so that you can use that code base based on the design documents that were created. You also have unit testing. So whenever they write the code, they have to do a unit testing, basically test each individual feature uniquely. And then when you have tested each feature uniquely, you also have something called as integration. So you bring all the units together and test it holistically. So these are the activities that are very common in a development phase. Now, what are the roles of people that participate in this phase? The most important one out here is the developers or your development team. They are the one who write and test your code. Then you also have some UI UX designers who ensure that the interface that is getting developed is almost to the design, or rather to design, of what they had created. Similarly, your database administrators manage your data structure and ensure that data integrity is in place. The data structure that was designed is also followed. Or if there's a discrepancy, there needs to be some adjustments to the design documents that have been there. So there is a lot of things that go on when you are moving from design to development. The most important is your QA specialist. They also start conducting tests to ensure the software meets the quality standards. They may not be fully involved into the testing because it's still development, but they start crafting their test scripts. They start writing their test scripts so that when the product is ready to be in a state where someone can use it, they can start implementing those test scenarios and make sure that the quality of the product is intact. A quick shout out to myself. I have written a book or a handbook on Scrum Master for PSM1 certification. It drives you through fitness application that you can follow along so that you can understand the different principles of Scrum and Agile. This book is available for free and the link is in the description section. The next thing that happens in the development phase is task allocation and unit development. Work is divided into smaller, manageable units, and the tasks are then assigned to the team members so they can work on those units. And ultimately, when the specialists have finished working on that area, we enhance the quality and efficiency of that unit. Once that unit is ready in terms of development, then you will try to add some unit testing and automation. So unit testing basically ensures that that unit that was created is of good quality and all the standards have been maintained. This unit testing is usually done by the developers themselves. The automation testing basically moves one step ahead of unit testing. Rather than testing each unit every time, you write automation tests so that that unit is validated periodically. Now, when you combine the unit tests for all of these components, this automation now becomes a test suite that you can run every time you have a bigger change coming in, so you know your units are individually working. Then you move on to continuous integration. Now that these units are working independently, you put them together and see how the interaction between these units happen. There are a lot of scenarios when these interactions will fail and you will lead to integration bugs. When you regularly integrate code, it saves you the effort of identifying defects later in the game. So you should always plan for having continuous integration of your units that you have been working on. Let's see the best practices that are there for development phase. You need to obviously follow the coding standards and guidelines. So for every technology, there are standards, guidelines, and practices that are already available. You need to make sure that you are following those, your team members are following those, and there is consistency or a pattern in your entire code base. That way, if anybody new comes onto the project, all they have to read is the standards document, and now they are equally onboarded so that they can start creating software of the same caliber. You should also use version control such as Git, GitLab, Bitbucket, and many others. You should regularly review, refactor code to improve the quality of the product. And once you're doing your development and coding, you also need to make sure that you're having some kind of technical documentation created so that any other developer who is onboarding onto that unit or that feature can read the documentation and understand what that component does. It could also be inline comments, or it could be a separate doc altogether. Let's recap. So we saw what development phase is, what are the key activities, the role of different parties involved, what are the tasks and the unit development, how do you do unit testing and automation, the best practices that we follow. So that covers pretty much your development phase from a 10,000 feet. What are the common questions? Well, the biggest problem happens is you actually open the hood in your development phase. The problem is when you start developing things, you realize the requirements, design, often have a mismatch, and at that point you may not be able to go back. So that is something that you need to be very cognizant of. You start logging those and take them through a change management process. The next question that I often get is, how can we ensure effective collaboration among development team members? Well, the best thing to do is communicate with your developers. There should be an ambience or a chat room. You can use tools like Slack or Teams to have that communication established. They need to collaborate regularly. They need to talk to each other. And at some point, we also have seen when we used to go to offices that close location between the developers also helps. So if they're sitting next to each other, they often interact with each other more and they are able to talk through the feature, and that leads to a better product. What tools are common for development phase? Well, there are too many tools, right? So you could use any IDE like a Visual Studio Code or Eclipse or IntelliJ. Again, it all depends on what your tech stack is. So there are too many tech stacks and too many tools to say which one's the best one. But when you research your tech stack, you will always get the tool that go along with it, or probably when you start watching videos of teachers that are doing it on YouTube or any other medium, you will realize the tool or the tech stack that they use matches to what the IDE is, and you should be able to get that IDE as well. And lastly, the best way to predict the future is to invent it. So you need to create something, you need to develop something. Unless and until you develop something, you're not leaving something solid in the world. So I always say that, keep creating, be hungry, keep learning. That being said, if you're hungry and are looking for in-depth knowledge on Scrum and PSM1, I have created a course, the link for which is in the description. Please enroll if you're interested in it. I also take you from zero to a Scrum Master, where you could also apply for a PSM1 certification. And for any other tips and tricks on Scrum or Agile, I have curated a lot of content at teachingagile.com. Do visit it. Please make sure to like, share, and subscribe to the channel. It makes YouTube really happy. I'll see you in the next one.